ערב טוב לכולם, ברוכים הבאים למפגש נוסף של סלון פולין. היום איתנו שתי נשים מיוחדות, סברינה, צגלה ואגתה וז'ניצ'קה. אגתה מפולין, אז נעבור עכשיו לאנגלית. I will switch to English now. This meeting will be held in English because of our special guests from Poland. Good evening, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us for today's special Zoom session of Salon Polin. Salon Polin is a project run by the Polish Institute in Tel Aviv that focuses on art, discussion about art and connections between Polish and Israeli artists and art. And today we have two special guests and special connection between them. Sabrina Czegla, Israeli curator, and Agata וז'ניצ'קה, Polish architect. Thank you, Sabrina and Agata, for joining us. Sabrina is architect and curator, also a founding team member of Liebling House in Tel Aviv. Sabrina teaches also architecture at Sam Shamoun College of Engineering in the Negev. At the Liebling House, she initiated and curated numerous exhibitions and platforms, among others, exhibition by Agata וז'ניצ'קה that you can visit now at Beit Liebling. And Agata וז'ניצ'קה is architect, urban planner, now researching public spaces of the 21st century and the impact of political initiatives on their typologies. She won numerous architectural urban planning competitions, obtained many grants and scholarships from City of Warsaw, Polish Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. And her works have been exhibited, among others, at the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art, Ludwig Museum in Budapest, and the 17th Architecture Biennale. Agata co-runs Butut, a contemporary design studio operating in the fields of architecture, exhibition design. And what is important to know, Agata was supposed to be in Tel Aviv in person in March. However, as you recall, the complex situation in Israel ruined that plan. However, we are very happy to have you on Zoom today and hope to see you in person one day in Tel Aviv. Agata, Sabrina, thank you so much for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will start, and really thank you very much again for having us and for doing this evening, and also supporting the exhibition and Agata's work at the Liebling House. It's really turned out to be a wonderful project, and I'm very grateful to you and to Agata. It was really a wonderful process to be part of. In this evening, what we wanted to do is something happened in my screen. This is why I'm suddenly I need to accept something, but it's written in Polish. I'll accept. I don't know. What do you see in the screen? Do you see?
I think that someone else shared the screen.
Yeah, somebody shared. Okay. So maybe we can somehow fix it. It's somebody in the language of Polish language shared the screen.
I think Mr.
Wait.
Lior, it must be you.
No, it's not mine.
It's Mr. Alexander Godlewski.
I don't know how to fix it. Okay. Let's see. Sabrina, now you cannot share?
No. Wait, maybe I can share. Just a second. Can you see
yours.
my?
Yes, it's yours.
Can. Perfect.
Okay, great. Sorry for this. So I'll just explain our how we planned this evening for you. And the idea is that we want to take you to, as we cannot meet, as Magda said, we were supposed to meet, and then Agata was supposed to come to Israel, and unfortunately, because of the situation and the war that broke out, this could not be realized, but we're still hoping this will happen eventually, and you will all be invited. So we wanted to invite you to kind of a stroll through the Liebling house, the exhibition from afar, Agata's process of work, and different things that we were discussing that have to do like with process and the exhibition. So we decided, instead of kind of doing this usual PowerPoint presentation, to walk you through a mirror, which is much more associative, and kind of go from one thing to another, and to kind of share with you as much as we can. And before we start to discuss the exhibition that Agata has done, which is called The Appendix, a Gedesian Hyperscraper in the Liebling House. For those of you who don't know the Liebling House, I will introduce it in a few words, and a bit the White City, and also the Geddes plan. So we'll have kind of a context of what we're talking about for those who are not so familiar. And so the Liebling House is this is what you can see now on the screen. It's a cultural center dealing with architecture, conservation, and urbanism. And we opened in 2019. And as you see, this is a historical building built in 1936, and it's one of 4,000 buildings in the city. And the idea of the Liebling House is to deal with this heritage that's of these 4,000 buildings that were built in the 30s in Tel Aviv, which are called the White City, declared by UNESCO in 2003. And so the Liebling House, we have exhibitions, we have a lot of talks, a lot of cultural program, and we are really trying to bridge the 30s. I think this heritage of the 30s is a starting point for us to discuss also the challenges that we are dealing with in the city today, from privatization of the public space, climate change, geopolitical wars and situations we are dealing with, and so on. And all of these have to do in the end, or as we believe it, have a manifestation in the public space, in the built environment. And we see architecture and the built environment as a sort of a cultural, social, and political even document, that through it you can read the power dynamics and that are influencing our life, actually. So working with this building is like a part of our practice, and the White City, as I said, these 4,000 buildings from the 30s are a starting point for us to discuss the challenges we have today, as this style, this modern style, and the idea of it was to actually try to address how can life be to make life better, better living conditions, and also social conditions. So this brings me to the city planning of Tel Aviv. And the city planning of Tel Aviv was planned by Sir Patrick Geddes in 1925. And this plan that he did, that we are celebrating now 100 years of this plan, is the first master plan of Tel Aviv. And this plan I don't know how much of you are from Israel or from abroad, but Tel Aviv has a very, very distinct form, that every the buildings are not connected, let's say like in Europe, and directly one next to the other, but there is always like a kind of a garden, as you can see here around the house. And the city is very, very green. And this is part of the Geddes plan, and Geddes, Sir Patrick Geddes was a city planner, a botanist, a biologist, an anthropologist, and a really very, very groundbreaking thinker. And he saw the city as like a living fabric, And he connected between, he saw it as a holistic structure, a living structure, and he connected between the social and the botanical, or the ecological, and the city planning. And for him, city planning is not only creating the buildings and the width of the streets and so on, but also to create an infrastructure for social interactions. And I think until today, these are part of ideas that city planners are trying to follow, as well as these ecological ideas. I just show you some pictures of Tel Avivian streets, typical streets. You see all these trees. I think most of you know, it's a very typical site. All these trees you can see that are adorning around the buildings. The buildings are freestanding to allow to air flow and the light to come in, to really create some well-being. And the idea is also there's a gradual, you go gradually from a very private space, from your home to your little garden around your house, to the street, and then to the main street, and so on. So there's a really gradient of uses in the street. And so you can see this is a very typical site. Another typical site of Tel Aviv is also, of course, the building sites, and we will address this also in a moment as part of kind of what we are the challenges we are dealing with today, because you see this building site, there are no more trees around it. This is next to my house, and there used to be 9 trees and 1 is left. So there is a really radical change happening now in the city. And this is part of the mission of the Liebling House, is also to address these changes that the city is undergoing and to discuss them. And Liebling House is in a very interesting position because it's between the municipality, the creative community, the professional community of architects and planners, and also, of course, the city residents. So it's a very interesting situation and it's a very nice meeting point to create also an impact. This is a bit about the White City and about the Liebling House, and I will just give a little. Concerning the Geddes plan, this is Sir Patrick Geddes. You're seeing part of the permanent exhibition. And I will give the context in which Agatha is actually exhibiting her exhibition. The permanent exhibition at the Liebling House is telling the story of the White City, of its development through its architecture. And here you can see a part of it. And the idea of the exhibition is actually to, through the architecture, as I told you before, to tell you the story of the city and of the people and of the culture. And the idea of this, usually it's a timeline. It's organized around the timeline. But a timeline is usually a very strict format. It usually tells the story of the winners, so to say, of what has been built, and not about the speculations, and not about the, I would say, maybe failures and so on. So the idea of this exhibition is that it wants to tell one story, one of many, and it's a timeline that kind of is trying to also negate itself with it's a few timelines put together about climate, about preservation, about city planning, about modern architecture in Israel and abroad, and about world events. And the end of this timeline is actually the opening of the center in 2019, which is a very, very random point to end a timeline. So the idea of this is the open end of this exhibition is the project room, and this is where Agatha is showing her exhibition. And the project room is actually a space where there is an open call, and the creative community and the planning community is invited to address the question, what is the White City? And this is a part of the curatorial concept of this permanent, open-ended exhibition, to keep this a living question and also keep it multifaceted, and to to contest narratives and histories and to imagine different futures. So we have already 12 iterations in this space. It's always an open call. Agata is the 11th exhibition in this space. And I will just briefly show you, for instance, a few exhibitions that we had in this space, the third iteration was contesting the narratives that Tel Aviv was born from the sea by Daniel El-Hasid, and talking about erasure of the Palestinian villages that were there and that they're not part of the narrative, and trying to broaden and question this memory and collective memory. And the fifth iteration was by Laure Catougier, and she is actually following the building with concrete around the world, the modern way of building, and you can see it all over the world. And she did also a project in Tel Aviv following these forms of modernism in Tel Aviv. And we showed it next to her project in Tehran and in Cairo. And suddenly when you see these forms that were made in concrete in Tehran and in Cairo and in Tel Aviv, you see suddenly this whole map of connections that used to be in this whole area that were forgotten. And maybe also a very similar living experience in similar living forms. So this is another iteration of a designer, product designer named Lee Berger. She was dealing with demolition in Tel Aviv, which is the main one of the main issues we're dealing with now 90 years almost after the white city was established in the 30s of the 20th century. We are dealing now, all the orange ones are the demolition sites, which are much more. It's always escalating. The city is under very, very big construction and renewal. And this is suddenly that the city that has built itself 90 years ago is suddenly demolishing and rebuilding itself again. Of course, now is also the whole issue with the war, of course, which is a different kind of demolition and power that is coming in and changing the city as we know it. And in this exhibition, Lee Berger is a product designer who proposed to, on the one hand, remember the city and keep the material memory of the city by reusing building materials and not seeing them as waste. So it's on the one hand a environmental, ecological perspective, and on the other hand another way of remembrance, this very rich material culture of the city. And the last one that I will show you is the Urban Field Manifesto. This is by urban designers Yael Moria and MA Studio. And they created this installation in the space, talking about public space, creating an urban field, and creating, contesting the public space and the idea of public space, which is being lost and by privatization, and its characteristics are getting lost. And they are talking about using resilient plants like weeds that we are trying to always get rid of to be our new partners to design and to rethink the whole idea of public space. So here you see like a few examples, and the exhibition by Agata, you can see here this beautiful installation here. And I will invite Agata to tell us about the installation and about your idea. And we'll continue from there in a conversation about the work and about different topics that comes from it. I'll just say that Agata addressed this 100 years. We are celebrating now 100 years of Geddes in the Liebling House. There's a big exhibition dealing with the 100 years. called Life Plant City, curated by Shira Binyamini and Limor Yusufun Goldman. And Agata's edition in the project room is this is why it's the appendix. We called it the appendix because it's we're thinking, okay, Geddes' plan was written in 1925, 100 years ago. What would happen if Geddes would come today to Tel Aviv and address today's challenges and would see the city and be confronted with the reality of high rises? So Agata's proposal is dealing with that, and she will elaborate and tell you all about the fascinating process. Shall I stop share and you share?
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. I hope that, yes, I can share.
I'll just say that in the end we'll be very, very happy to open up in the last part of our meeting today for questions or anything you would like to share with us.
Okay, so thank you, Sabrina, for the introduction, and thank you to the Polish Institute in Tel Aviv for providing us the platform of Salon Polin to present our work. And I would like to explain this project by its development trajectory. So as an architect and an urban planner, usually when I come to the city or a new place, I try to find reasoning why the city or why this site is how it is. So, of course, I try to describe the architectural style, the composition, but also try to define these immaterial qualities and like get to know where they come from. So before exercising modernity research project that I took part in 2019, I was in Israel for a few times in different cities, and as most of the visitors, I loved the energy of Tel Aviv and also its architecture. But it is when I came back with exercising modernity, I started getting to know more about the urban planning process of the city, the style of architecture, and the people and the laws and forces that shaped the city. So with this exercising modernity project, I was working around the characteristics of an ideal block, so of a modernism housing situation that could be ideal, and working across borders in Poland, Germany, and Israel. I tried to focus not on formal solutions, but on these qualitative characteristics. And I prepared a report in a form of almost a comic book that you can find online. And here, and this book, it is composed of somehow like field notes that led me to defining these characteristics of an ideal block. So I've already started researching Patrick Geddes in 2019. For example, his work for Jerusalem, but also for Tel Aviv. And I was reflecting on how modernist architects, how they employed his visionary plan to work with their architecture. And I was lucky enough that to get my hands on by Leaves We Live publication of the Liebling House, which published the plan with the commentary. And if you are interested in it, you can also see it on Liebling House website. You can find the text of Patrick Geddes and see for yourself how contemporary it was. Even if it was like written 100 years ago, it really strikes as almost like a poem or like a true urban planning manifesto where a designer aims for like greater quality of life and explains what means can be engaged into realizing this dream or like almost Eden. So it's not only dreamlike, but there are like very concise directives on how to work on strengthening local bonds and like this feeling of neighborhood, how to introduce nature in various forms into the city tissue. So when I got to know the By Leaves We Live text, I already knew that I want to delve more into Patrick Geddes' plan. And my initial proposal for Liebling House during the open call was somehow connected to the Exercising Modernity project, and also it was more about public spaces in the city. But after I got accepted to Liebling House, the COVID started and the situation got more complicated. So I was it was only possible for me to return to the city in 2025. So after 6 years of not being in Tel Aviv. And when I wandered around the city with Sabrina and with Amalia from Liebling House, I observed that my initial project about, let's say, public life wasn't totally adequate or actual. So what I saw during our field trips, as I call them, is how the city changes, how the white city loses maybe its charm, I would say, somehow, but maybe loses the details that for me were quite important, and how many towers grow around the city of Tel Aviv. And it's not only the towers that are like commercial, the offices, etc., but also how many multifamily housing towers and skyscrapers are in the city. So I also noticed how they change the typical vision of Tel Avivian architecture, because at first, for me, it was what Sabrina showed you on photos, for example, on the photos of Liebling House. So like a lower scale, like 4 floors housing block, modernist style, probably full of or surrounded by lush greenery. And now we had these blank objects, almost like totem-like or sculpture-like, without any greenery on facade or around it, just like glazed facade or like panels on the facade, more hostile and less human-centered than the Tel Aviv I knew before. So I started working on a proposal, and this scheme that you can see here somehow summarizes my thinking process. So I started researching the white city and how it changes. I got to know that there is an imbalance within the protection status of buildings in the white city. And there are 190 buildings under strict preservation where they can be modified, while the rest of the city, so almost around 3,800 buildings are like still under protection, but under such a protection that enables modifications. So what modifications I observed? I observed the change of scale because of the extensions of the existing of the existing building stock. What was before like 4-floor buildings now was getting rooftop extensions of like 3 or even like 4 or 5 floors, or even like a backyard new building that changed the density of the white city and also its shading situation, the silhouette of the street, and it started grabbing back the human scale that was so important. Then I also noticed how the hierarchy of roads and of public life established by Patrick Geddes, how it started to be distorted. So how some of the walking pathways within the housing block, how from green or greened alleys, how they started being the roads for cars or parking spaces. How, for example, how the buildings that were once surrounded by greenery, how they became paved around to give more space for parking, or how another modernist characteristic, so an open and permeable ground floor, how it became, how it was built over, like to add more space, like more functional space, more commercial space on the ground floor of the building. And finally, how some of the buildings, they lost their beautiful silhouettes and I would say like a great posture or a great presence because of these new additions to the top, but also how they grew a little bit wider. It wasn't like really a lot, but because of the loss of because of the necessity of putting individual shelters inside each apartment, the buildings, they grew a little bit wider. So there was no more space for greenery around, but only for the cars. So I noticed how the white city, how it started maybe not losing its appearance, but how it started changing into something new. And the other thing that was quite important for me was getting rid of the unique architectural detailing of some of the buildings of the white city and exchanging those with some typical architectural decor that you can find around the world. I remember when we were walking by and found like a new balustrades in newly renovated buildings, and they were the same as we have in Poland, like the most typical ones, like metal balustrades, also painted in anthracite color, so also a color that is now like painted over probably whole Europe. It's not unique for the context, and it's also, I believe that it's not flattering in the sun conditions that we can have. So something about uniformization of an architectural environment happened, and I was quite sad to see it. And when we were talking with Sabrina and Amalia about the situation of the city, we of course noticed these totem-like skyscrapers, but also they told me about the real estate situation of the ownership situation of the city, and this is where the second part of the idea comes from. So the ladies from Liebling House, they told me about air rights and transfer of development rights. So the air rights are property rights that refer to the space above, to the airspace above the building, above each plot. and transfer of development rights is a planning tool that enables to transfer unused air rights to another site to build there higher. And why was that so like thought or like idea inciting for me? This is exactly why you see this imbalance. So the transfer of development rights was made possible for these buildings under a strict preservation, because the owners of flats in these buildings, they, I believe, or maybe Sabrina can correct me if I'm wrong, that they sued the municipality for not being able to use their air rights because they were not able to build over their buildings because of the high status of the preservation. So they sued the city for, like missed opportunity, I would say, of earning some money. And then this transfer of air rights was established. So owners of these buildings or apartments in these buildings, they were able to transfer their air rights or like sell their air rights so that these additional floors can be built someplace else, and they would get the money from these air rights. I hope that I explained this correctly. Sabrina, if you want, you can correct me.
No, it's perfectly correct.
So this idea about transferring development rights gave me this crazy concept about like ultimate protection of the white city. So I thought that if all the air rights above all the buildings in the white city, so above all 4,000 buildings in the white city, could be transferred someplace else, there would be no more renovations, like no more roof extensions, or let's say no more like enlarging of these buildings, no more manipulating the ground floor, etc. So it would be like this radical conservation move, and the air rights would be transferred someplace else. So using the air rights, the transfer of air rights was my my idea of saving the whole white city from any new development and maintaining its qualities, its unique qualities as they are. So I made this very simplistic calculation that we have 4,000 buildings of the white city. 3 is an average amount of extension floors from the air rights. So then we could build someplace in Tel Aviv municipality 12,000 floors. And then I thought, this is a crazy idea. This is a lot of floors, a lot of places to live. And to make this idea stronger, I thought that these floors, they could be all pulled into one hyperstructure, one hyperscraper that would be like really, really high, unrealistically high, but it would be one building in a language of New Tel Aviv, of new developments in Tel Aviv, but it would be a building that could maybe solve the problem that I thought I saw when walking by white city streets. So I started designing this hyperscraper, as we called it, and I wanted it to be an homage to Patrick Geddes. So I tried to design a hyperscraper, a skyscraper, a vertical structure, as Patrick Geddes would design it in the 21st century in our contemporary times. And to simplify it and hierarchize and order it a little, I figured out three main themes, recurring themes of sections of the building. And then I also established a connecting axis, an activity loop that was like serpenting around the whole building. And it was like an activity loop that could be explored from ground, like from bottom to the top or from top to the bottom. And it included like continuous spaces for activity. And it was also a constant observation of mine how various levels of activity are present in Tel Avivian public space. So how many activities can you do with different levels of intensity, how you can walk, exercise, play mat court, sunbathe, just sit and talk, etc. So I thought about this infinity loop to be like a thread that connects the recurring themes. And I designed this, and then in the exhibition you can also see like quite specific but still simplified and diagrammatic designs for each theme or for each section of the building. So there was a section called By Leaves We Live about how nature could be included in a vertical environment of such a hyperscraper, how it can provide like vertical public spaces, like almost oasis like public rooms or like living rooms, how the nature could be also cultivated and harvested within such a vertical structure, how it could be stored and managed, how the crops could be transformed or like looked after later, how not only like traditional ways of growing crops, but the new ones, how they could be included, and also how what would be the connection between the inside and outside of the building, also integrated with the living facilities for the people. And I tried to show it as simple as possible. So this is why like each theme was presented both by section and an elevation. Also to show that this elevation wouldn't be as sterile as it is now, so how it could also be a habitat for birds or some high altitude plants, or how the facade could also, in quite a modernist way, manifest what happens inside. So this was one theme.
I just want to add, Agatha, that each one of the section is actually corresponding with the main idea of Geddes. Like By Leaves We Live, it corresponds with Geddes's idea about integrating this green infrastructure in the city in a vertical way.
Yeah, the other one was Habitat Souk. So it was also about common spaces and communal life, strengthening the local bonds. And as Sabrina said, it is also inspired by Patrick Geddes and his hierarchy of communal and common living. So how we can shift from public spaces through semi-public, semi-private and totally private spaces, what can be shared and what should remain private. How can we, how our economy, how this economy of this vertical building how could it benefit from like having shared resources or like working together on these shared resources. And also here you can see how this theme is intertwined with the activity belt. And then there was also a section of civic engine. So how can we introduce spaces within our living tissue? How can we introduce spaces that enable us developing as a society? So how can we perform our civic duties? How can we protest? How can we get together and establish some norms of rules of behavior that we want to follow? So this was also about, this section was also about some interrelations, establishing hierarchies or giving the space for the inhabitants or for the citizens to be free to perform what they like to do. Of course, these are like simple solutions, but sometimes these multi-use halls or like very specific sections of the building that enable establishing an agora, they can incite like specific actions, specific behaviors that could happen.
Thanks a lot, Agata. It's, I think, first of all, I just want to say that the exhibition this is the last weekend for the exhibition, and whoever wants to come and see it can do it this weekend. It's an opportunity to see it. And I think what's really interesting about this proposal, which Agata has done, is really, on the one hand, really take these values of Geddes and address like these current challenges, and also this idea of this is not just a speculation, open-ended, that ignores like reality completely, although it's extreme and 12,000 floors and not really realistic, but it still considered this idea of air rights and the capitalistic framework that we are living in, and working within it. And I think in this sense, it's a very specific kind of speculation that has that is still connected to reality in many senses. We would really like to. We have a lot more to say, but we would really love to open up the floor for questions. If anybody has something to say or questions or.
Hi, thank you very much, Swabrina and Agata. First, I would like to ask, how was the process of after Agata, you kind of managed to anchor the idea of what you want to do and to implement it? How was the designing, the designing process working in Bet Liebling with Swabrina, the curator? And how was eventually you thought about the manifestation of the physical exhibition that is open to view? How was it? What, because there are like certain ideas and physical gestures there.
Okay, so thank you, Lior, for your question. Actually, the work was really great, and it was nice to like bounce ideas around with Swabrina. From the beginning, I knew that I wanted to use the architect's apparatus to present the idea of the hyperscraper. And we were considering different options. So we were considering, for example, like hyper-realistic, almost like developers' renderings of the proposal. But then it probably would be too serious. So we've decided to explore the language of an architectural diagram and that is supplemented with sketches like cartoon-like sketches. And we worked on the arrangement of an exhibition. So also when we were working on the arrangement of the space, it was as well the discussion with Sabrina and with Amalia from Liebling that helped me like figure out how the idea can be presented. So here you can see like a plan of the exhibition where we have like 3 totems depicting 3 themes of the hyperscraper.
We're calling the parts of the of the sky hyperscraper totems, just for it's like our internal
lingo.
jargon.
Yeah, that's true. So we had these 3 totems of 3 recurring themes of a hyperscraper that stand on a cloud, so also and are surrounded by this blue hue on the walls that give you an atmosphere of being high up in the clouds, maybe dreaming or maybe like being on the like 1000th floor of the hyperscraper. And then we have also like quite simple and not serious way of presenting or building the totems. So they are printed on thick cardboard, and then the construction, the structure of the totem is also quite maybe not funny, but still happy and almost makeshift. So it's not too serious. And when we discussed about, let's say, the meaning or the heaviness of the project, we thought that it would be nice for the people to see it as probable, because maybe in some it's possible to build like very high structures, maybe not 12,000 floors, but quite high ones. So it would be possible probably to transfer most or some of the air rights into one building or like a group of skyscrapers. But probably it's not totally feasible in current economy and geopolitical landscape. So to, let's say, diminish the seriousness of the proposal, we thought that it could be like a cartoony, like a sketched proposal that leaves a lot to imagination of the viewer. Sabrina, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think you said the idea is really to invite to imagine, kind of, and to create a discussion through this. On the one hand, this extremity of the proposal, the speculative aspect of it, which really irritated a few visitors that are saying, no, you cannot do this, and this is an awful building, an awful suggestion. But on the other hand, this is exactly the point of it. It pushes to the extreme. Also the conservation on the one hand, this radical conservation, on the other hand, also this building of hyperscrapers. So I think in that sense, it's really pulling this scope to the edge in order to really provoke even a discussion and to inspire people to discuss.
Any other comments or questions? Now is the time.
Well, if not, I would just invite you, because it's the last week of the project, to to visit the Liebling house and see for yourself. You can also delve into the text of Patrick Geddes at the link on the Liebling house website that I showed you. I think it's really fascinating to understand where we live, or like what constitutes our environment, and what is the most important like quality or characteristic of where we live. So if you visit the exhibition, I would be very honored, and I would really like you to reflect what you appreciate most of the White City, and like how would you like to protect it.
Thank you very much. I will also say thank you and invite everybody and thank Agata. I think it's a very effective and thought-provoking project and proposal, and really asking us what is important, what are our values, and how do we want to live today, and to propose really. And I think, especially in Israel and in this time, we don't really get the chance. We're so under pressure of survival in a way, of a mode, that we don't really have time to try to reflect and imagine a future, because the present is so intense. And I think I really thank you for this opportunity to kind of imagine a future and to imagine how we want to live together, and especially with these values of Geddes, which are really, they're very holistic and are thinking of plants and people and humans, and to create a wholeness. And I think this is a maybe good note to finish with, and to also to kind of wish upon ourselves to have a peaceful and communal future with whoever is sharing this space with us.
Thank you so much, Agata, Sabrina, and everyone who joined. Agata, hope to meet you in person in Tel Aviv for another walk and tour, for another inspiration, and it was great having you here. And thank you everyone who joined us today.